guys, and welcome back to my channel, The Journey to Justice. We're just going to talk about the affidavit, because there's so much of it. We're just going to go back and forth and talk about, well, I'm going to talk about different parts of it. And on page 3 of 32, starting from 15 or 16, summary of multi-agency missing person investigations in Colorado. And of course, in this affidavit, they go back and forth a little bit, repeating themselves. Only because the story had changed a little bit, and so that's how that goes. On Monday, January the 27th, 2020, to Wednesday, January the 29th, 2020, investigators had taken independent steps to get information received throughout the investigation. And in most circumstances, have video footage, cellular communication, and location records, security system records, or other records to support the following claims that are listed. And the summary sections are meant to give the court an overview of the investigation and their facts supporting the summary. They come to a conclusion, and this is their affidavit to give to the courts. On January the 27th, or about it's about 1855, and that is close to 7 o'clock Colorado time, Leticia reported Gannon missing. But first of all, she had called 911, and during that 911 call, the operator instructed her to call El Paso County non-emergency line. And the reason for that was because Leticia reported him as a runaway. But I'm not sure if she said Gannon was 11 years old. And one day we're probably going to hear that 911 call, because you know the detectives have got that, and I've heard what the operator said, because they have to confirm whether she did really call 911 and speak to a real person, because she could have just called 911 and hung up right away before an operator answered. So they would have checked that out, and they would have that as some documentation of that ever happening. So let's go back a little bit, because I scooted way forward for some reason. So Leticia called 911. The operator tells her to call the non-emergency line. Now, like I said, we don't know exactly what was said, but the investigators, they do know exactly what was said, who said what. I don't know why the operator didn't ask a little bit more questions, like, is he a runaway or is he missing? Is he missing? And maybe she should have stressed the situation of an 11-year-old boy as a runaway should be reported as a missing person right away. Now, and this is why a lot of people are signing a petition to have, if you report an 11-year-old or a child under 13 or whatever the age is going to be, that they should be listed as not as a runaway, but as a missing, endangered person. And all resources should be contacted. And the police, and they should come out to your house right away, as soon as they can, because time is the essence. Police should be on the lookout, for this child. Get his picture right away, put it out there so the police can, if they just happen to see somebody at the gas station or running down the road or in a car that looks like this kid, they can pull them over. But we know that it didn't happen that way, but it's the steps that you take for any child that is missing. And they shouldn't accept that a child that is missing would be a runaway just because the parents said so. You know what I mean? Because as we know, parents make their kids disappear. And so yes, the law should change, and you should never treat an 11-year-old as a runaway. They are missing, plain and simple. If they're not with you, not at the house where they're supposed to be, they are missing. So she does that, and plus T was on her phone looking for the non-emergency number to El Paso Police Department. Why didn't the 911 operator put her through to the non-emergency phone number? Like if you call 911 and you say you don't know where these police stations are, I mean you might know where they are, but you don't know their number offhand, you can call 911 and then say this is non-emergency, and they quickly put you through to the non-emergency, and you tell them who you want to talk to, the non-emergency. They switch you over right away. I guess that, I don't know if it works in every state like that, but we're not supposed to know every police station's number or anything like that, or even the fire department. You always call 911 and say it's non-emergency or it's an emergency. No. So, and then the conversation and whatever she said to the El Paso Police Department, allegedly she tells them this is what she says. Gannon was supposed to be home approximately 1 hour ago. Now this was at 6:55 in the evening, p.m. Colorado time. He was supposed to be home approximately 1 hour ago. Well, that's a little odd, isn't it? Because she never said he had to be home at 6 o'clock at night on the dot. What they said was they have a rule saying that when the lights come on, you start making your way home. When the lights come on, meaning before it gets dark. So she also tells him that she was not unable to locate him at his friend's house. She could not locate him at his friend's house. What friend's house? She didn't know where he went. She didn't know which direction he went. Whose friend's house did he go to? She didn't know. I mean, this is just one of her stories. I'm just saying. And this is where her story starts changing multiple times over the following days. Now, when she says she could not find him, so she tells the El Paso non-emergency line, and she could not find him or locate him at his friend's house. Now, which friend's house? Leticia doesn't know. And investigators do not believe Leticia went to any home in the neighborhood to attempt to locate Gannon. Well, why would she? She didn't have to look for him. Allegedly, she knew exactly where he was. So why would she go looking for him? Now, maybe the smart thing to do was go look for him, go knock on a few doors. Now she's acting like she doesn't even know any neighbors. She acts like she doesn't even know the names of Gannon's parents, when other neighbors have come forward saying that they are close to El and Gannon, and they know them pretty well. They even have his phone number. They even called him up. El even called them up. And Leticia didn't know these people. She didn't know their last name. She didn't even know their first name. Well, maybe that's true. Maybe she just don't, because she don't care. They're not really her friends. They are Elle's friends. Now, for that to happen, Elle must have had control of his friends and knows exactly where he goes. But he doesn't keep up with his friends. Like she said, I don't keep up with his friends. Like, how many friends does he have? How many friends does he have? Gannon had friends at his house. They were playing with the game. There's a video of it. He's playing the game. He had a friend. So you don't know that kid's name? You don't know where that kids live? So that's kind of odd for her to even say that. You know, she used to have a babysitter, didn't she? You know, Stephanie. She had a babysitter and she moved away. Well, she had this babysitter from day one. Because the babysitter said she's known them for about a year. they've only been in Colorado for about a year when the babysitter moved away. She'd only just moved away. So what happened? It sounds like T didn't have much to do with Gannon's friends because she was never there because she had a babysitter, and the babysitter took care of whatever she took care of and the hours she worked. And because I guess T was working, she was working in one of the schools there. So she probably didn't have much dealings with the neighbors at the time when the kids were playing outside before it gets dark. I'm just saying, maybe that's how it was. I mean, T doesn't really say how it worked, but I'm just saying that's how it could have worked. That was the routine. And since she didn't have a babysitter no more, she lost it. She's lost the plot. Because she wasn't, when she said she was taking care of the children, she may not have been taking care of them as much as she makes out that she was. And it sounds that way to me. So they don't believe that she went to any homes, and they say that it's just one of the many lies told during the investigation. You know, this is up till the 28th of February, obviously, as you know, before she was arrested and Gannon was found. Leticia was unable to provide a actual location of the home she went to. Because you know what? She said she could not locate him at his friend's house. And then when questioned again over the course of a couple of days, she couldn't even tell the police the location of the home she went to, or even the name of Gannon's friend he was supposed to have been playing with, or even the names of the parents of Gannon's friends. Now, as we know, there were a few people that were on the TV news when they were looking for Gannon. Candlelight vigils, you know, and friends, you know, giving their concerns on TV. And they said, one was Peterson or something like that, and there's another neighbor that lives right next door to them. I don't know if it's on the left or the right. And they were saying they are very good friends. They are close to Gannon. They didn't really say close to the family. They said close to Gannon and his father. Now, as we know, Al's job, I don't know, his last job in Alaska, he was working 12-hour shifts. You work 12-hour shifts for so many days, 4 days in a row, or something like that. Just say 3 on, 4 off, something like that. You know, in the days that he's doing his shifts, he'll want to come home and he'll want to sleep a little bit, and then he goes back to work. So you really don't see, I mean, Gannon wouldn't see his dad very much, and nor nor would Leticia see her husband very much because he'd be sleeping, getting ready for his next shift. Now, the days he's off, he probably has a lot to do with his son during the day. Well, if he's not at school, that is. So that's just a little strange why the neighbors were more friends with him and Gannon than they were with, say, maybe the little one, the sister, or Harley, or Leticia. Because Leticia's not really interested in the neighbors. It sounds like it. I mean, it doesn't sound like the neighbors know her very well. And she obviously doesn't know her neighbors unless she's just lying about knowing them. Obviously she's lying because she didn't know which house they lived in or their name. So that just shows you how interested she was. She's forgotten their name. She don't know who they are, for Christ's sake. Hell no. The police responded to her residence, as we know, at 6627 in Colorado Springs. When the police did finally show up around 10 o'clock, 10 after, they were unable to locate Gannon. And apparently, they had cameras on them and they were talking to her and they were supposedly searched the whole house. Now, did they search the whole house? Did they search every closet, every cupboard, every closet that a kid could crawl into, behind the doors, in the cabio, in the washer, in the dishwasher? Did they search everything to say he was not in the home? I don't know if they could say that. I know they showed up. And then in another statement Leticia made was when she made up the story about the carpet guy, the Mexican guy, Eduardo, or whatever his name is. She said she was trying to give the police hints that this guy was still in the house and he was hiding. This is another one of her stories, that he was hiding, and she tried to warn the cops and give them many hints as possible to say, there's a man in my house. But she never told that to the 911 operator. She never told that to the non-emergency El Paso Police Department. And she also said that he's the one that took Gannon and they kidnapped him. He kidnapped him. So that's some of her stories around that time. And this was just the beginning. And she's already told about 10 different stories of what seemed to be unbelievable, if you ask me. But you see, that she didn't tell the cops at the time when the cops came around. She told this story a little bit later. But the thing is, the cops were looking and paying attention to what was going on in their surroundings, because in one of their statements, they also said the position of her car and where it was at the time when they got there. It was in the garage and it was backed in. I don't know how far it was backed in. It was backed in all the way, and the garage door was shut, or was the garage door open and the vehicle was backed in half the way? There might have been a reason why I'm just saying, the way she parked her car, whatever position it was half in, it was all the way in, the garage door was open, it was shut. There was a reason. She may have been hiding something in her car, allegedly a body, and the police were looking everywhere in the house except in the vehicles. Do you find that strange? Because the police normally, if they're looking to double check in your home just in case, then why wouldn't they look in the vehicles? Because kids hide in vehicles. Well, we know what we know now, but at the time, it just don't make sense that they never looked, or they overlooked the vehicles because Leticia was talking their ear off. And maybe she distracted them somehow. Now, if we see the video footage of the police cams, then we'll know exactly, her demeanor, what she exactly said. Because right now we only have her word. Now we know what her word is, It's not very reliable, because she changes her story like the weather changes. She changes her story to suit what's out there at any given time. So the police never look in the vehicles. So she must have been very confident. Very confident. But as we know, the police never came to at least 10 o'clock. Did Leticia know that the police were coming around 10 o'clock? Did El Paso Police Department tell her this, that we will be out, but it won't be till about 10 o'clock? Because I'm wondering, because Leticia, I don't know if she was scared they would look in her car, that she never moved her car and drove somewhere. Now I'm saying she did get in her car at some point, and she backed it in at some point. But what time was that? Because she could have drove her car down the road a little bit and hid him there for a moment until the police had come and the police left. And then she retrieves him later on that night, puts him back in her vehicle, or she gets him the next day. And the next day comes, and she is already at the airport. She has already rented a rental Kia. We know now she parks her car at the airport's short stay parking lot. Elle's flight comes in late, or it was just she got the rental so early, hours before she picked Elle up, and make some excuse, which is really crazy excuse if you ask me, about the reason why she needed the rental was because Gannon wouldn't recognize the rental car and then would not run off. That must be her words and not Elle's words. Elle's probably thinking, what the hell? Because he hasn't spoken much, so he's never really confirmed if that's what she said to him, or if it was ever discussed over the phone, in a phone conversation or a text. Did she text Elle and say, hey Elle, I'm gonna rent a car for tomorrow when I pick you up, and we can go around the neighborhood and look for him so he doesn't run off? I mean, who thinks like that? I mean, there's a whole lot of work for nothing. She uses another excuse. Her car is new and she didn't want to put the miles on it. What miles? When I heard that, I thought, what the hell? It's a leased car, but even so, it doesn't matter if it's a leased car. It's not like she's traveling from one end of the state to the other. She's potting around the neighborhood. She didn't have no problem driving her car in the same area, the same locations that she went in the rental car. She goes to Douglas County at some point in that rental car. She drives her own vehicle around the same area from her house to this location, to that location. So what was she on about when she didn't want to put the miles on it? She put the miles on it though, didn't she? She went to the same area. So that's just another story, I'm saying, just another excuse. But I guess allegedly that we know why she went to this extreme, from one car to the other, and then give excuses or truths, half-truths, to why she was in these locations and has been in these locations before. She has friends that live out here. The woods flew out of her truck before, just flew out the truck, you know. Must have had a tornado or something and just sucked that wood out of that bed and blew it in the spot where this would be found, with blood on it. And also GPS location devices put her in the same area, stopping and slowing down and not backing up, but she stopped and turned and went back and turned and went back the same way. She did that a few times because that is a location where she had stopped for a matter of 5 minutes each time. There are maybe 2 locations, but and that's the locations they were looking in Douglas. But the wood to just fly out of the bed of the truck that day, because it's happened before, what, in the same spot? In exactly the same spot? You know what I mean? So these are her stories. These are from her words, from out of her mouth, to people, to Elle, to investigators, to anybody that would listen. Now, it's quite unbelievable about the wood. We know that. That was like, if you're going to tell a story, tell a believable story. And that her friends or relative or aunts, whoever lives nearby, you mean they would come pick up odd wood that was never used again, and you would take it to the dump. Where were you taking this wood, this trash? Where were you taking it to? Not on that day, but on other days that she said that's what they did. And that's how wood has flown out of her bed before, out of the truck. So you know people in that location? Is that where your friends live? Is that where your aunt lives? Because otherwise, why would you be in that location? Is that where waste management is? Is that where you normally take your trash to the dump? Is that what you normally do? Not really. Because outside her house was some big green bags. They're like little dumpsters, if you ask me, where waste management will come and pick this junk up that you throw in there. Recyclables, or just plain, or grass, or whatever it might be. You kind of paid for this service. You get the bag and you dump stuff in it, and while it's full, the garbage man, the company comes and gets it. So why would you be going anywhere with any trash? It's just something to think about. Like, we kind of know it's not true, but we're kind of talking about it because she brought it up. We didn't make this crap up. And it might not even be crap. Some of it has got to be true. And there's a reason why she went round these. How many more times has she been to Douglas in the past? How long has she been thinking about doing something like this? She must have picked out an area. She must have scooped it out at some point. Now, if the investigators go back, and if they can go back, to pinpoint her locations she's done in the last months, where has she been? What was she doing? Has she been to this location many times? And if so, why? Who lives there? Does she have friends there? we want to know how well she knows this area, because if you go to this rural area, rural, it's pitch black at nighttime. Pitch black. And it's very, very open. Muddy, dirt roads, slushy. You know, because it's winter. It's winter there. They have a lot of rain, they have a lot of snow, they have a lot of sleet. It gets slippery, it gets muddy. It's farmland. There's a lot of animals out there. Like I said, even bears. Wild dogs. You name it. Whatever lives in Colorado, there you go. You got a lot of wild animals out there. Now, she must know a way around there in the dark. So I'm just saying, my opinion is she scooped out the area. She knows the area pretty well to find the location she was looking for when she went back there several times. So we know Leticia doesn't know any of Gannon's friends, so she made out she doesn't. We know that when Leticia did get the rental car, come back, and she said that they used the vehicle, her and Elle. This is why I said last time, would Elle confirm this? Because he only has to confirm it. Yeah, me and Leticia were in the car looking for Gannon for hours and hours and hours. We never stopped all day long. That wasn't the case, was it? Leticia said she went from home to home. She backed in their driveways and she asked every neighbor. By the way she was talking, that's how it happened. But Elle said she was gone. So what was the point of getting the rental car if it wasn't to look for Gannon? But we know that wasn't the reason. Now, I'm not 100% if that's the reason she told Elle why she got the rental car. Because it's not been confirmed if she told Elle this and when she told him that. But obviously he knew she got a rental car because she picked him up in it. So who went looking for Gannon? Because there is no neighbors, not one, can say, Leticia came to my house knocking on my door. Have you seen my son? Have you seen my son? You know, and start ticking off the neighbors, where you've been, which house you've been to, what street it was on. Tick it off, done. Talk to that one. You know, I've talked to that one, write their name down, you know, just write their name down and their number to their house, tick it off. I mean, that's what you would do, right? So that would be proof that you've been to people's homes and you are trying. But no neighbor and nor Leticia could come up with any evidence saying that she'd been to the house or she hadn't. So, and I don't know what Elle was doing when he came back for a reason. He came back because his son was missing. Not a runaway. Did you see? Well, we all know. Elle was told his son was missing. or Al was told his son has run away. But Al was on the first flight out of Oklahoma. First flight that he could possibly get. He was home by the next morning, late morning. That's how quick Al worked. That's how fast he came home. For a child that just run off. He wasn't thinking, oh, he ran off, he'll come back later. No. He must have known it was much more serious than a runaway. Now, I don't know what Al was doing. He obviously was calling neighbors. He was going around to their house. He probably was the one looking and asking neighbors. They got a hold of the community in Larson Ranch. The community got together. Even people that very night when they knew Gannon was missing, they were out in the streets looking in the evening, in the nighttime, in the early hours of the morning. That's what people in that community were doing. And T apparently didn't step out of her door, didn't step off that driveway, except to move the vehicles. So that was what was happening on the 28th and the 29th. As we know, the investigators asked her to come into the police department at some point, but she did not come in voluntarily. And that's why the police tracked her down and took her in. Because if you have nothing to hide, then you would show up and come in the police department and give them all the information you knew and tell us that story again. What happened again? You know, because by now he's been missing a whole day. 2 days he's been missing. And she did not go in. No, because she was too busy. She was too busy moving vehicles around Colorado, like she works for a car company or something. She was going from one vehicle to the next, and driving them all around Colorado Springs. Now, the neighbors said that T was not helping in the search. And T stated that with Spencer, that the neighborhood was saying that she's not concerned for Gannon because she is not looking for Gannon. But there's a reason for that, Leticia said. There is a reason for that. Number one, my husband's ex-wife is at the house. I'm not allowed to be in the house. Now, me and my family are looking for Gannon all together. And Gannon's not in the river. He's not in the ditches. She said that more or less. That Gannon was not there. Now, how does she know he wasn't in the ditch somewhere? Or, they got that little river that goes along there somewhere. How does she know that he wasn't in no ditch somewhere? He could have been hit by a car and thrown like a hit and run, and his body flew in the ditch. I'm just saying. We know that didn't happen, but I mean, you could have been thinking on those levels that that's a possibility that he got run over and there was a hit and run. And he flew and they drove away. I mean, but no, she doesn't say anything like that. That would be a little bit believable, wouldn't it? I mean, that would be a believable story. That could have happened while he was running away. And the person chasing him could have run him over. Now that would have been a little bit believable. Question mark. But no, she comes up with these crazy stories. So this is why she was saying that the community were mad at her and that she's getting hate. She's getting a lot of hate and threats. People are gunning for her. Why? Because of her story, because of her lack of remorse, her lack of tears, her lack of concern, her unwillingness to walk the streets, beat down them doors. Instead, neighbors say she was smiling, she was joking, she was having a party. Well, the community were looking. They got the dogs out. They got their children out. They are walking the streets and she doesn't do a damn thing. Now, why doesn't she help? Well, number one is allegedly she didn't need to because she knew where he was. So why is she going to go out looking for somebody where she knows where they are? She didn't even play along with it. She didn't even play along with it to make it look believable. It's just things like that happened from the get-go that were very odd to people. And maybe she spoke to her neighbors. There was probably plenty said, but it has been sealed, and we won't know what people said exactly. We only know what we know to be true. We know what the police, the investigators have said. We know what they're not telling us. It's because it's under investigation and it's sealed. We know some things were leaked purposely by family members. It's not just, when family members, this is why they don't like to tell family members nothing what's going on, because they too can't keep their mouth shut because they're so pissed off and they're so angry of the situation, or they want to defend themselves or defend a situation, and they blurt it out of frustration. People do this deliberately to wind you up, to make you talk. This is why it's best not even to let the family know what's going on in an investigation, so they cannot let it slip, no matter how wound up they get, because they don't know the truth. And you can't slip up and make a mistake. So that's just a little bit on that. I mean, we could go on and on and on about the 28th and the 29th. The things that Leticia did not do speaks volumes. Speaks volumes. She says she was getting death threats. Now, you know, there's people out there that you know, found her guilty right off the bat, right? We all had our suspicions. You know, normally your first instinct is right. Your first instinct. But that is not always right, but most of the time, 99% of the time, your gut instinct. And when you listen to people talking, it's not, your gut instinct is normally right, but you have to give a person a benefit of a doubt. I mean, this was at the beginning I'm talking about, you know, within a couple of days. Give them a benefit of doubt, because as we know, everybody acts different to situations. Some look like they don't even care less, or they're just, you know, like they're just goddamn fed up with the old situation. They didn't want to be a mother or father anyway, and they come off and give a bad impression of themselves, and they did nothing wrong. They just, actually, they're relieved, you know, some stress that's relieved from them. They can have a break, you know, whatever's going on, you know, whatever she's thinking. So the neighbors are, and people are pissed off at her, but you know, there's no reason to give threats. I mean, that's going a little too far. That makes you just as bad as she is. If you're accusing her of doing something to harm him, and then you turn around and say the same thing, well, it doesn't make you look very good, does it? I mean, everybody has the right to a fair trial. Everybody is as innocent until proven guilty, no matter what, in the court of the law, that is. But we can all have our opinions and our theories, and we can all play detective, and we can all have a discussion and have our own opinions to why this happened, where it happened, how it happened, how did it happen, how did he get to A to B, A to B to C to D to E F G H, because I think there was multiple locations. How did he get from, in the end, how did he get from Colorado Springs to Pace, Florida, under a bridge? Now, you know, the investigators are looking into that, have looked into it. The agencies that are all involved along the way, from Colorado to Florida to South Carolina, are searching desperately for cameras, are searching desperately for anybody that has any information, no matter how small. But what car was she in? You see, if you want to find out where she's been. You gotta know what vehicle she was in, or who she was with. Because we know that's from evidence or people talking that Leticia was missing in action. Not sure on what time, what day, but it seems like maybe nobody knew where she was, and maybe nobody could get a hold of her by phone. Now, but we don't know what phone she had. We don't know what phone she was using. Now, she was using a phone. Was it a burner phone? Was it, like people were saying, she used app phones, app numbers. It's not really a number, is it? Not a real one. But I don't really know how that works, how they can track location from that. I mean, you could be anywhere. You could say you was in Colorado and you're not. You're in New York, really. How do they pin that down? So they got to find out whose car was she using. Did she get another rental? Who paid for it? Did she stop for gas? Did she pay by credit card? Anywhere. That means anywhere from Colorado to South Carolina to Florida and back again. Whose credit card was being used at any given time? Was it her aunt's? Was it her cousin's? Was it her stepsister's? Was it her aunt? Was it her mother? Every single one of these people, her best friend, they're probably checking, unless everybody was using cash, but they certainly will be tracking their phones. They'll be tracking their usage of their credit cards, debit cards. They are, they have, to track them all down, their location, because they want Leticia. They have to have her to help them. They have to have her in Florida at that given time, which they say between the 3rd and the 5th of February 2020. She needs to be in the area of where Gannon was found. Because that's when they say Gannon was put there. Now, don't ask me how they came to that conclusion. Because we know he wasn't found then. But they're saying, so the police have more info than we do. If they want to pin down between the 2nd and the 5th, they have a lot more evidence than we think. But they need witnesses. Now, we think there is no cameras. There's no cameras. Now, you have to know there's no cameras down there, right? Who knows the roads that well to know there is no cameras? There's got to be cameras around there because there's stores. You see the photos? There's a gas station, there's McDonald's, there's a bank, there's a restaurant, there's businesses. They have cameras. And this is all leading up to the bridge. Now this bridge is pretty long, and a lot of it is water. But before you get onto it, and once you get off it, there's hotel. Like I said, there's more businesses either side, the Pace side or the other side of the bridge. They just gotta know what vehicle she was in. Now they probably know, say, whoever lives in Pace, Florida, her mother, her cousin, her brother, half brothers, half sister, somebody lives there. Yes, they do. Relatives live there. Her brother, I think, her half brother, did construction where Gannon was found. Something like that. That's what his job. He knew the road. He knew the bridge. Did he have anything to do with it? I don't know. It's just weird that, Gannon ends up somewhere where Leticia's been before. But maybe she has never been there before. We don't know. Just because you have a relatives that live somewhere doesn't mean that you've ever gone there to see them, because they might not have lived there for very long. But probably she has been there. She's been to Florida a few times. Her mother lived in Florida. Her mother lived in Miami. This is why who said that? Well, somebody said they thought, well, one time I thought he was here too. I don't know what made me think that. Maybe it's because we kind of knew they had family in Florida. So we're thinking, well, he could be in Florida then. And he was. Apparently, he was. So we know that for sure. So Leticia knows Florida pretty well. Plus, Leticia was looking she had been looking actively for places, 2-bedroom apartments or a house in Fort Lauderdale, maybe Miami, somewhere in Florida. She's looking for a job. She was looking. Now you can't tell me there was something wrong in this marriage. And she wasn't looking to bring the whole family with her. She was just looking for herself. Harley may or not have been coming with her, because as you know, she's going to be 18, she's got a job, she wants to be in the Air Force or whatever she's doing. Who knows where her career was taking her, which state she was going to, which state she was going to live in, if she was going to join the Air Force full active duty. But Leticia was looking for a place for herself. So you kind of know there was trouble in that marriage. There had to been. There was signs. She already said that. By her looking, her Google search. Now we don't know how long she'd been Googling these kind of searches. Has she done it months before? Or she just done it since Gannon was missing? She certainly did the searches for the homes before Gannon went missing. That is for sure. there is something else Leticia said to the dispatcher. Leticia had made a statement, and this is not the first time she had said it. She has said it. I heard her say it myself when she was talking to Spencer. Now, the El Paso dispatcher, Leticia said, Leticia is the last person that ever saw Gannon alive. Now, she was asked that question, or when she was talking to Spencer, he asked her about who was the last person to see Gannon alive, and she says, I was the last person to see him. She has said that twice now. Now, if he had run off, or he had gone to a friend's house, or he had been kidnapped, you wouldn't be the last person to have seen him. Even if he had been missing genuinely, I mean, she didn't harm him or anything, you would never say, yeah, I was the last person to see him, because you wouldn't be, would you? Unless you knew you were the last person to see him alive. Okay, guys, that's enough on, I was talking about up to 22 there on page 3 of 32, from about 15 to 22 on page 3. That's just a little bit of the dispatcher, the phone call within a couple of days, the rental of the car. That's just, it's not everything in the affidavit, but it just gives you a little glimpse into all this confusion and all these stories that was made up just over a couple of days. And this is only a little bit of it. I mean, how much more do they got over the last couple of days, from the 27th until the 29th? You know, the investigators got a lot more than what we're seeing, what we're reading, what's out there, just in a couple of days, how the story changed. But there's one thing that Leticia is consistent and being truthful to, was, I was the last person to see Gannon alive. Thank you, guys. Don't forget to like, sub to my channel, and press that notification bell so you can be notified on further updates on cases that, this case, the Gannon case, the Stauch case, missing, the lost, DNA, sold by DNA, old cases, to stay updated. And don't forget to press that bell, and I'll see you in the comments.